Hello and welcome back to the Unconventional podcast. Today I'm joined by Chris. Would you like to give an introduction to the people listening?
Grace, thank you so much for having me on your show. I've checked you out on LinkedIn and Instagram. A real pleasure and really honoured to be on here. So I'm Chris O'Connell, 25 years recruitment experience. I've built and sold different businesses. I now help other businesses how to build and grow. A bit of a backstory as well, which I'm sure we'll go into.
Of course. So how did it all start for you? Where did you come from? What was your upbringing?
Well, okay. I'll go right back to my childhood. I had quite a poor background and upbringing. I used to live in a caravan. Dad used to work on the railways and he came home after a night shift to find me half naked hanging out the caravan window. My brother, I was 2 years old, my brother was 3. He'd raided the fridge. My mum had left us there all night on her own, stole whatever possessions my dad had, and kind of fucked off, if I can swear. I just have.
You can. We won't bleep it out.
Okay, good. My dad wasn't able to look after us physically, financially, emotionally, or psychologically. He was a very kind of simple man, wasn't very affectionate. It was just too much for him to look after 2 young boys. So I was fostered for 4 years from the ages of 3 to 7. And then he took us back into a council flat. I remember him still working on the railways. We had to get up really early in the morning to go to his work at 5 o'clock. Then I used to walk to school on my own. So from a very young age, had to stand on my own 2 feet, and I was kind of like the parent of myself and the family. He remarried, and she was very abusive to me in terms of physical abuse and psychological abuse. She used to like beat me up a little bit and stop me going out, and be really horrendous to me, really kind of suffocate me. So the first two female figures in my life, my mum abandoned me and my stepmom kind of abused me. So as you might imagine, that would affect anyone. How it affected me was it made me very shy, very nervous, didn't feel very worthy, wasn't nurtured, didn't know how to love or be loved. It was a very difficult, traumatic, affecting childhood that made me feel all those feelings of shame and guilt and all this kind of stuff. I attracted the wrong people in my life. It's affected me throughout my life, really. I then later found out my mum was a prostitute. I also found out only about 4 weeks ago that I've got another sister as well, which I'll go into. And she's also abandoned 2 other children that she'd had as well, which is not a very good picture of my mum, but it's a factual thing. Then kind of got through school, even though I didn't like it. I skived off a day every week for the last week in secondary school because I couldn't handle being in school.
And what was it about school that you disliked?
I was just very kind of like shy and kind of like, when you're asked to read something in front of other people, I couldn't do it, and I just didn't like the social aspect of it. I felt I was different, inferior, because I didn't look the part. I had free dinners. I just felt very, unworthy, really. So I used to forge my dad's notes and, skive off. And then even at that age, at sort of 12, 13, 14, I would get on my bike and try to find train stations where I'd want to kill myself. So it sounds quite graphic and fierce, but this is what happened to me, right? I joined a big, massive corporate recruitment business called S3, which is a £1.5 billion business. It's got 5,000 people in that business.
What age were you when you joined?
21. 20.
And so how did you get from school to recruitment business?
I went to college and did a HND in business and finance. And then I kind of got my CV up and ready, walked down a few high streets, walked in person into these agencies, got some interviews. And I did an interview at this business that gave me 11 interviews. It was meant crazy, really. Got the job. Ordinarily, you think someone like me in that environment where it's very salesy, very hardcore, wouldn't survive. I became the worldwide top biller across every single person. I was billing nearly £1 million a year. And I became a bit of a sort of like folk hero in that business because I was just one of the best, if not the best person there. So that gave me that confidence, because I walked in there and it kind of gave me the vehicle to think, hang on, whatever's happened to me, nothing worse can happen to me. Mm-hmm. So it kind of gave me the confidence on the phone to CEOs and business owners where I could just sell. And I was very good at it. So I left there, then set up my own business in 2003. And in 9 years got that to 100 people, £25 million turnover. I won 14 industry awards. I was Southwest Entrepreneur of the Year. So again, another phenomenal experience and achievement, if I may say so myself. Something I'm very, very proud of. We got it to that stage, and then my business partner walked in one day and said, I don't want to do this anymore. So I did a private equity deal with a very well-known ex-dragon from Dragon's Den. I'm sure many people know that program. And it's been well documented in other podcasts that I had to take that individual to court, and I basically lost the business. I lost £25 million. I got divorced, lost access to my children, had to sell my houses, was practically bankrupt and homeless. And it was a very, very dark moment for me, as you might imagine. I was like on the floor. I was sleeping on mates' sofas and Airbnbs. I was fucked financially, mentally, physically, emotionally. My whole business and purpose had been destroyed. So at this point, I'm kind of like thinking, what the hell am I going to do? Anyway, I came back onto LinkedIn about 4 years ago, told my story. And since then, I've got to say that I've done so much work on myself. I've had to look inwards. I've now helped over 60 recruitment businesses build, scale and grow. I've got my own podcast. I've completely rebuilt my purpose, my life, who I am now. When I was running that business back then, I was a bit of a dick, I'll be honest. I was a bit of a Jack the Lad. So that I'm not saying I'm not accountable, because I am. And now I'm very proud of who I am. I'm a totally different man now to what I was back then. I love myself. I'm very close to my children. I've got some great friends. And I'm building and growing my life from there. So there's a bit of a potted history for you.
Thank you. Well, that sounds like an absolute roller coaster. But going back from when you made the decision to go from corporate into self-employment, what was that thought process for you? Because I had one myself from corporate straight into self-employment, but most people don't feel comfortable enough to take the risk.
Yeah, I think my view on that is sometimes it's a bigger risk not to take a risk at all. You know, I question whether it's a risk being an entrepreneur, having the freedom to do what you want to an extent. Obviously, it's not all glitz and glamour and champagne. It's very difficult, as you know, but I'm not the sort of person who wants to sit in a job or a role and be dictated to or controlled how well my career can go and be kind of boxed off. So I personally feel it's a risk to be at the mercy of an employer. There are some brilliant employers out there, don't get me wrong. I'm the sort of person that likes to be in control of my own destiny, and I think it takes a certain type of person to do that. So I think 10, 15, 20 years ago, you know, it was solopreneur or entrepreneurialism wasn't anywhere near as popular as it is now. But I think, unfortunately, our education system indoctrinates us and almost poisons us. What's the word? It kind of manipulates us to thinking that, you know, going to university, getting into tens of £1,000s worth of debt
is a brilliant idea. The only route you can really take.
Yeah. If you don't do that, you're a failure. And if you don't have a 9-to-5 job and a wife and a house and a car and a dog by the time you're 25, you're nobody. And it's actually, I think that's a surefire way to a pretty dull and uninspiring life personally. And I'm not here to judge anyone or anything. But for me, I think that the government right now is making it harder for us as entrepreneurs. You've got a better opportunity to really be yourself and achieve your goals if you're in control of your own destiny as a business owner. But, you know, everyone's different.
Definitely. I think school is a really interesting thing. I think it shapes you quite a lot as a person, as does your whole childhood. But in my school experience, I was bullied. I was told I was stupid and dumb by certain teachers because of my... It's all right. It's made me the person I am today because of my dyslexia and neurodiversity. And so, especially in school, you're taught to be the same as everyone else. Yeah. And it's basically a memory game throughout the entire length of school.
Absolutely.
And so when I left and went into the real world, I had a lot of limiting beliefs put on me from my school experience that I then needed to take apart in therapy. And then when I started my own business, one of the only ways to be successful is to have a USP. Like, for example, there are so many recruitment businesses, but you need to differentiate yourself from the competition. Yeah. Same in accountancy. But for all those years I was at school, I was told to be the same as everyone else. So I really tried to fit in at the beginning and it wasn't working. And then as soon as I was myself, that was my USP. And I was like, okay, now it's working. But it's all very counterintuitive.
Oh, 100%. They should be teaching us things like how to build a business, you know, money management, mental health and well-being, you know, emotional intelligence, all that kind of stuff. And I think you've done well to break free of that kind of matrix, if you like. I think with the advent of social media now, as you say, that the school system of just sort of learning stuff that's already there, people can just find it on AI, or they can do an exam, or they can do homework by just doing that. So I think it almost has to change, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And so when you were starting your business, did you plan for it? Did you make a little business plan, or did you just go head first?
Well, the funny thing was, you know, I left that corporate business and I was kind of ready to go on my own. And then a guy that used to work there as well, he'd left just a week before me, and he said, "Why don't you come to my house in Bristol? My business plan is ready." And I thought, yeah, I'll go there. I got there, and he's like, business plan is like on basically the back of a fag packet, like one page, one line. I was like,
I want to build a business.
Yeah, that's not a business plan, mate. To be fair, mine wasn't that much better. So yes and no, but I think inherently it was belief, it was mindset, it was that insatiable desire and hunger and inner kind of drive to know that I can do it. To be honest, that has been kicked out of me quite a lot after what's happened. So I'm rebuilding that confidence. But I think a business plan is really important. Having a plan is really important, but you've got to take action. So we just decided that, we believed in ourselves, we were good enough. We had the track record from the previous company. And we found our feet a little bit in the first couple of years. We were making mistakes. We were both doing everything. And then we got to a point where actually, what's my strengths? What's your strengths? We played to those and we separated it and delegated it. But it wasn't easy. But I do think if you can find the right business partner, two heads are better than one. You can accelerate more quickly. It's like being married as well. So it's not always, you have arguments, you have disagreements. But I think that's also healthy as well. I was the sort of guy that if we had the budget and money to hire 5 people, I'd say let's hire 55. And he would say, let's hire 2. So he was quite cautious, and I was kind of like, come on, let's just go. And I think that combination worked really well. Mm-hmm. But I think in business, I think you're better off taking a risk than not, and you're better off going for it. Generally, is my rule of thumb.
And so if someone was looking for a co-founder, what would you suggest is good? I mean, I had a co-founder and it wasn't the right fit, and then we parted ways.
I think the co-founder needs to be complementary and understanding of your skill set, but I think you need to have different opinions as well. And I think actually that's quite healthy. So someone who can challenge you and is willing to be challenged. I think it's really important, to have accountability in your business, and that comes from the top. So, you've got to act how you want your team to act. The team is a reflection of yourself. So I think that if you can't challenge your co-founder and be challenged back, then there's an issue with the leadership. Don't blame anyone else other than yourselves.
100%. And so when you were running your business, what sort of attributes and things did you put in place to be able to scale so quickly?
I think it was, as I say, the right mindset, the right attitude. I always believe that companies, they hire on skills and experience, and they fire on behaviours and attitudes. We made sure that people had the right kind of, as you probably know, there's a lot of rejection in recruitment. So you've got to pick yourself up pretty much on daily, every hour on the hour. You got to keep positive mindset. You do have to be organised as well. There's a lot of recruitment agencies out there and businesses out there that say they're specialist or niche, but they go off on tangent and they go off on the next shiny thing. They've got 16 different projects or 25 different industry sectors. I think become a master of 2 or 3, become well known, get that knowledge, get that credibility, and then you can get the clients that way. I think having an outbound sales business development focus is important. I love personal brand. I've got 74,000 followers. I get 2 or 3 million views a week now. My personal brand's gone mental at the moment, and I've built a lot of business from there. But I'm also very pro outbound as well. You can't just sit there and wait. So you've got to have a sales culture. You've got to have a proactive sales culture. But also you touched on, you've got to be yourself as well. So I think people aren't buying from businesses, they're buying from people. So whether you're a one-person band or 500 people, get yourself out there, do some content, do some podcasts like this. So I think it's it's about marketing, it's about sales, it's about the right attitude. And I go back to that accountability piece, understanding what your strengths are as well. So I'm sure there's things you're absolutely great at. I'm sure there's things you're not great at. is owning those, and then, kind of getting other people around you that can help you. So maybe have a coach, having people around you. You're only as good as your team as well.
100%. And I think when you start a business, especially when it's yourself, you're not good at everything, and no one expects you to be good at everything because you came in with a speciality. And so it's really important to have that self-awareness and reflection to say, right, I'm not great at that, and that's okay. What can I do to improve, or how can I fill that gap? I'm
all for continual improvement as well. So if you think you've done something well, how can you improve that? But I think, don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these guys that wants hustle culture, and if you're not working 24 hours a day, then you're lazy. But you've got to have a work ethic, you know. And I think I listen to podcasts. I go back to the personal development stuff I do. I think that when you think you know it all, you know nothing. So I think you've got to have a continual learning mindset, and you've got to also kind of expect the unexpected as well. There's no 2 days are the same. It's never a straight line. It's how I think often when things are going well, it's easy, isn't it? But I think experience has taught me that, when you're in the shit or dark times happen, the only way to get out, you can't blame other people. You've got to take action, accountability, and how you respond to these things is really important.
100%. And so when your co-founder came in saying that he wanted to leave the company.
He did.
The building both. As well. What was your first initial reaction in your head?
Well, I kind of knew it was brewing, to be honest with you, because we were kind of like, not falling out, but we're having regular disagreements. I wanted to build in different countries and go crazy with it, and he wanted to kind of just, he was doing less work basically. So it wasn't a surprise, although it was a very difficult thing to actually kind of deal with and accept, because I couldn't afford to buy him out because all the money was tied in the business, and the business is worth 20 million quid. So it came as a surprise, but I kind of had to move quite quickly because the team were they were witnessing and seeing and realising that all wasn't well. Yeah, he kind of did a quick deal. He then left, and then these guys came in, and the first year was good, but they did destroy the culture, I should say, from a very dynamic culture of going to Porto Banús, Vegas, New York, and different kind of lunch clubs, and really, really rewarding the team. And I was really close to the team, which is a good and a bad thing, I think. But to them, then sort of me having to be in an office looking at a spreadsheet every day, and anything that we wanted to buy or invest in, they didn't want to go for. It kind of destroyed the culture, and very quickly, it dismantled after that.
And so when you were going to them with things that you wanted to do, was it just shut down straight away?
Yeah, because they were looking at the bottom line, whereas I wanted to drive the sales. They wanted to drive the sales as well, but they, like any private equity, but they were fierce. They were all about where can we save costs, what can we do, almost down to like counting the bloody coffee granules. Do you know what I mean? It was ridiculous. I believe that didn't engender the culture of growth, and they were kind of like, they were obviously older than the team. They had their suits on, and kind of like whenever they came into the office, it felt as if they were kind of policing and monitoring and watching us, which was never the environment that any of us wanted to be in. So it kind of didn't work really.
And so what was the point where you really saw it quite going down south?
Well, I think it was quite soon after the deal was done, to be honest with you. Just the level of detail that they wanted. It was like we'd have board meetings that were 4 hours long and have a board pack that was honestly about 80 pages long, like analysing every single kind of thing, almost like what kind of socks I was wearing, kind of. It got a little bit too much there, but we kind of handled that. But then it was just like things like we wanted to hire people, we would have to go through different processes, and then it will be a no. So after sort of 6 months, 9 months, and then after a year, they wanted to start to oust or remove some very key people in my business that had been around for a while that were adding value, but they saw them as a cost. And there was a lot of friction between me and them, and I bore the brunt of that because as the leader, I kind of had to make it my fault, my idea, but people didn't realise that at the time. So then it got to a point where they tried to get me out as well, because obviously I was paid the most, I was the CEO, and I had 50% shareholding, and under no circumstances was I going to accept that lying down. It took me 4 years, cost me 600 grand in legal fees, but with 2 weeks to go, I ran out of money and had to do a deal out of court. So I lost the business, I lost it all. I lost my purpose, I lost the whole concept, and it's very hard to comprehend that. I'm through it now and over it now, but imagine building a business for 9 years and getting it to 25 million pounds and having all these awards and all this kudos for it to literally be taken away and you'd be left with nothing. It's not just the money, which is a massive thing, it's the whole concept of that.
Yeah, it's like your baby that you built from the ground up.
Literally.
It's just been ripped away from you.
And I learned the hard way there about, I put so much effort into that business, like 99.9% of my heart, soul, energy was put into that business, right? And I've now rebuilt myself, and now I teach founders that you don't need to do that. Business is really important, but it's about personal development, it's about health and fitness, it's about purpose, it's about lots of other things as well. And you can have a balanced life and harmonious life. Sometimes what I teach the founders that I work with now is to zoom out. What are they doing outside of work? If they've got bad relationships outside of work, they've got bad relationships inside of work normally. They're not looking after their health and fitness and their purpose and that kind of stuff. So I'm still very money motivated, and I'm all about scaling businesses, but I'm about being the CEO of your life, not just your business.
And I think that's really important, especially when I started, I was like, work is life.
Yeah.
And someone asked me, what are your hobbies outside work? And I was like, I actually don't think I can answer that question.
Both pretty boring people if we just talk about business all the time, right?
I know. And they were like, cool, that sounds really exciting. And I was like, but I love it. And then I was like, okay, maybe I should reevaluate some of those things, because it does take a toll on you, especially when you're working crazy hours. But how did that sort of legal case have an effect on your relationship with your employees? Because you said you were quite close with some of them.
Yeah, well, it affected it dramatically, because I was told I couldn't speak to any of them.
Really?
I was blocked out of my own email system, couldn't phone them. It was part of the legal case. So the way it was done, when I was away on honeymoon for 2 weeks at the time, they interviewed all my people and they kind of engineered this. It's kind of like they would kind of forced to believe certain things, and it kind of like deliberately segregated me from the team. So
very sneaky.
It's very calculated as well.
Yeah, very.
They've done it to a number of different people, but the great thing is that pretty much every single person now has come back to me and said, wow, well, at the time they were against me, but now they see it and they're like, wow, well done for, they see me now as an inspiring leader back then. And I'm getting lots of different messages coming through from very senior people that work with me who have now gone on to run their own businesses and become sort of millionaire business owners themselves. A couple of them, they saw what I actually went through, and they also, I'm accountable as well, but it was just a horrific thing to go through at the time. The people you thought were close to you weren't, but they were in a difficult position. And funny enough, I bumped into one of my old sort of team leaders just only a couple of weeks ago that we kind of fell out, and we had a face-to-face chat, and he was like, mate, I think, and we kind of made up. And I think, I wouldn't wish what happened to me on anybody. Also, as you just said earlier, it's made me the person I am now. I'm a much more healthy person in terms of how I approach life, how kind I am to myself and other people, how aware I am. I think I was a millionaire at 28, 29, but I wasn't really on the planet, But now I'm about compassion, about honesty, and about vulnerability. I think it's not just about social media, but I get lots of comments about my authenticity and my vulnerability on LinkedIn. And I think that's really important. It's made me, because back then I used to put my suit on and I thought I was this bloody amazing maverick
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, kind of guy. And I actually like that, to be honest with you. But who wants that? But now I'm still kind of dynamic and dedicated and passionate, but I'm a human being. And I think that's what people want. They want a real person. It doesn't matter how big your business is. How you treat yourself and how you treat other people is just so important.
100%. And a lot of people have talked about the difficulties of having a relationship and running a business, and I cannot imagine how stressed you were when this whole court case was going on. But how did you navigate a relationship alongside everything that was going on?
Well, to be honest, I didn't really. I mean, we broke up quite soon after the whole thing happened anyway, to be honest with you. And I was so focused on my business that I wasn't really in the relationship anyway. So prior to that, I had different relationships that didn't work because, like what you said, I was so intrinsically focused on the business. I was sending emails at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just like I was married. Business might as well be my girlfriend kind of thing. It was like, but now I wouldn't do that. I put my children first, or if I'm single at the moment, but when I find a partner, I have a partner, that person will be just as, if not more important. I think you can have that harmony. So this is what I'm trying to say about relationships. So I've now built this business where there's 6 facets in my logo: business, health and fitness, personal development, relationships, purpose, and finance. And I think you've got to treat all of them almost the same. So if you've got like a happy partnership, then you tend to go into work happy as well.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes you've got to move the dial. Sometimes you have to work late and you do your business thing. For instance, I've just come back from running the New York Marathon. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't really done an exercise for 2 weeks, and now I'm back on the exercise thing. So sometimes you've got to move and shake and be aware. Business is so important, but it's not the key to success. It's not the only road you need to go down.
I completely agree. I was doing a talk at school the other day, and I had someone afterwards come up to me who was about 17 years old, and he went, "Can I be in a relationship if I have a business?" And I went, "No, yes, of course you can." Yeah. And he was like, "But should I break up with my girlfriend?"
Yeah.
And I was like, you should only break up with your girlfriend if she's not being supportive.
Yeah.
But if she's being supportive, then having that when you get home to is amazing and so nice to be able to take yourself away from work.
Because otherwise, what are you doing it for? I see some business owners that, they're so entrenched in their business that they might then become millionaires. But if you've got no one to kind of share that with, as well, and talk about it, I think it's really important. But also, I've enjoyed being single, and I think it's helped me. I think it was important for me to be single as well, to focus on myself. But now I'm ready for a relationship, and I think that there are some couples that I know that are only together for the children, or you can see that they're, why are you actually together? All you're doing is fucking arguing. So I prefer to be on my own than be with someone that's not right for me anyway.
Do you know what? I completely agree, 100%. But throughout your business journey, at what point did you realise that your past traumas were affecting the person that you are, and that it was probably time to seek help?
Wow, that's a really, really good question. Amazing question. I think deep down I knew from a very, very early age, but I wasn't capable to kind of take on proper therapy. I had loads of therapy and loads of counselling in the early stages of the business. I was going to the therapy and the counselling, but I wasn't in the room. So it was after I lost the business, it was after I got divorced, when I was on my own, when I just had the time, capacity and headspace, and I really did the work then. So I think I remember numerous times where, if I look back on myself now, I could see myself being quite, what's the word, detached from life and not really being on the planet. And I used to avoid any kind of speeches, and I used to be quite impulsive with the decisions I made in terms of what I'd buy. I used to buy loads of clothes and buy loads of watches and houses and cars and because I had lots of money back then. I'm not showing off. These are facts, but I'd also been quite impulsive with my partners in terms of I didn't think I was very worthy to have a certain level of partner. So anyone that showed a remote bit of interest in me, I would want to be their boyfriend. And it was, I'm being honest there. Now, there's a very strict criteria with me. I've got very high standards, and I think I've learned the hard way with that. So I attracted the wrong people because I didn't think I feel as if I was worthy. So in answer to your question, deep down, probably from an early age, consciously, I just thought, no, I'm fine, I'll be all right, And I think there's so many people in this world that are like that. What I mean is they're functioning and they're masking so much shit, and I can see it. And I think that's why I've done quite well, because people know that I can see it, and I can see it. It takes one to know one. So I'd prefer you to be open, vulnerable, and say, if you ask me how I am and I've any shit, I'll tell you. I won't say I'm good. So I'd prefer you to be open. Everyone's got mental health. Everyone's got something going on, something on the spectrum, ADHD or neurodiverse or mental health or well-being. It's good. Let's talk about it. Don't try and, I can just see it a mile off.
Yeah, 100%. And I think therapy is so important. And I think for such a long time it's been a taboo. But now I feel like it's slowly getting to the point where it's becoming more of a normal thing.
Yeah.
I think therapy is really important for absolutely everyone, no matter what you've been through.
Absolutely.
Because everyone has different types of traumas. Something that might be a small trauma for me might be really big for someone else and affect them in a different way. And all of your traumas affect you as the person that you are, the way that you react to things, the way that you behave.
Yeah.
And it's just reflecting on yourself and also getting the help when you need the help. Yeah.
And often these traumas, right, at the time, they're really horrific and they're really bad. And I'm not saying my trauma is any better or worse or bigger or worse. It's all relative. There's so much more people out there that have had worse, but it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say there is that at the time, it can feel like the worst thing in the world, but often that's where the light is and where the growth is. And if you can lean into these things and get the help and go through it, it often makes you a stronger person. For me, every trauma that I've been through is, at the time, it's felt horrific, but it's made me much more rounded. It's made me able to deal with other things. So now that things happen to me, I'm so less affected by things now. People blocking me or people this happening and this happening. Before I used to have a meltdown. Now I'm like, okay, it's happened for a reason. So I do think things happen for a reason. And I think that I don't go looking for trauma, don't get me wrong. But when I'm feeling shame or guilt, which is very rare now, or not very well mentally, which is still very rare, it's almost kind of like, well, what's this trying to tell me? What can I learn from this? Lean into it. And whereas before I'd go for drink or drugs or whatever. Now I don't do any of that kind of stuff. So I think trauma can be difficult, it can be challenging, but it can yield so much growth.
Definitely. And so before, did you look for unhealthy coping mechanisms when you were feeling a certain way?
Yeah, I used to gamble, I used to date, I used to drugs and drink and buy clothes and just do anything that was to take my mind and escape. Now I can sit with myself, I don't really watch TV very much. I'm kind of like pretty boring, really.
What are your hobbies?
Well, I've got my own podcast. I like going on podcasts. I like being a podcast host. I like listening to audiobooks and learning and growing. I play football. I'm building my own sort of online community as well. I've got 2 kids to see every other weekend. I like eating out. I like cooking. Mr. Exciting, huh? I don't know. I just like the normal stuff. I like fresh air. I like going to parks. I like going to walks. I like to just learn and grow and be around people, basically. I don't necessarily... I still have the odd drink now and again, but whereas before it's always like, where can I get a drink from? I'm not that worried about that, but I'll try and think of more interesting things, I'm sure, at some point.
You'll be like, I've got one. No, I think probably I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
But it is just appreciating those small things and being very present, because sometimes you get swept up in business. So
totally.
For me, I call it reconnecting with nature. So I live in London, but I'm from the countryside.
Yeah.
So I'll go back and reconnect with nature and go for walks and have fresh air and take time for myself and see 100%. The animals and all that sort of stuff. And that's what I enjoy enjoy because it brings me back.
Yeah, and also exercise as well. So I don't know what it was. The whole fresh air thing's so important, but I've also my LinkedIn feed, my Instagram feed, and my TikTok feed. I've created it so I'm only getting educational content, which is really helpful. And funny enough, I was feeling quite low this weekend. I don't know why. I think it's because I'm quite tired. It's been a really good year, but I've pushed and stuff like that. But sometimes you can't explain it. You do feel a little bit down or whatever. Yeah. It just comes in. And something came up on my Instagram about exercise. I exercise a lot. I exercise 5 times a week, sometimes 6. But I got on my exercise bike at home and I automatically felt about 15 times better. All the kind of clouds went. And that's kind of obvious, basic thing to do. But it's like exercise, looking after yourself, eating the right stuff, plays a massive part.
100%. And so when you had basically been pushed out of your business, would you say that was probably one of the lowest points that you had experienced?
Yeah, I think it's got to be the lowest. Well, I mean, I remember being a lock-in in a pub and I hadn't seen my eldest son for like 6 months. That was really difficult. And it happened again later on. But I think losing that business it's like being hit by a wrecking ball. I felt so embarrassed. I felt so exposed. It was one of, if not the darkest moment, yeah.
And how did you even try to pick yourself up after that and carry on?
Well, it took me a while, to be honest with you. I think I just had this I woke up one day, and at that time we were financially in a right mess. But I walked into this like financial bank thing that we had a mortgage with and managed to negotiate with them. And they managed to give us this amazing deal that got me out of some sort of financial situation. So kind of like I just took action with that. And then I decided to kind of get out of the marriage and kind of set up another business. So I think what happened to me with my mum and my stepmom actually really helped me get out of that business situation.
In what way?
Because my mum forced me to kind of do it my own way. She gave me my drive because my mum taught me, if you can call it that no one else is going to help you, mate. Even when your mum abandons you and stepmom beats you up, whatever, you kind of like, you got to do it yourself. So kind of like, I had this insatiable desire that, only I can get out of this. I didn't want anyone else's help. So even though it was at the darkest moment, I thought to myself, the only way I can get out of this is if I do something. Although the situation was kind of like, they stole my business, they did this, it wasn't necessarily my fault. I could have been the victim, but I chose to be the victor. And what I'm trying to say there is that in most cases, and there are some exceptions, right? I think you've got a choice. You've gone through some adversity, and there's so many different examples out there. So people haven't got limbs that are now Olympic athletes and stuff like that, right? Which is far, I can't even comprehend that. But I still think you've got a choice. You've got a choice to say, either this is going to define me or I'm going to take charge of this. And I think that's the lesson I learned, that you can still create your own destiny no matter what's happened to you.
100%. And I think that's really important, especially in business. You'll have so many failures, but you learn something from every single one of them, and that improves you as a person. So like when I started, there were things that would stress me out that I wouldn't even bat an eyelid at now, but it's just improving yourself.
Give me some examples. I know you're interviewing me, but what examples of that have you got?
Things if a client was unhappy or some software wasn't working or something was bouncing back, those things I would just go into pure anxiety mode and I'd be like, I've done something terribly wrong, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But now I know exactly where to go and what to do and how to communicate better with clients that are having issues. Or I remember I used to get so scared of chasing late payments because I was like, I feel really embarrassed asking for money. Yeah. But it's like, I've done the work. They owe me the money, so I'm just going to send them a text. It's
almost like we go into default mode. When I post something on LinkedIn, sometimes I'll get a bit of like kickback, and they automatically think, "Oh no, have I offended that person?" You can't please everybody either, can you?
No.
And I think I did a post actually at the weekend. It's gone quite. It's had over 1,000 likes. It's gone quite viral, and it was a joke post about CVs and HR people, and there's quite a few people that loved it. There was quite a lot of people that thought I was personally attacking them, and I thought, hang on a second, don't take responsibility for that. I can't control someone's feelings, right? My intention wasn't to deliberately do anything like that, and I think that's the trick. What you've just said there really well is about the narrative you say to yourself is really important. So I use visualization, I do manifestation, I've got my own vision board, and on my phone it's got all my values. And I think you've got to keep telling yourself positive stuff, not in a toxic way, in terms of like, you got to take accountability, but what you say to yourself is really important.
100%. And recently I got a gratitude journal from Amazon, because I felt like me 6 months ago would have just been like amazed at what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel I was being grateful for it. I was always looking ahead and like moving the flag of what it means to be a successful business owner.
Never satisfied.
Exactly. And so I've bought this journal to reflect, and it gives me prompts and things.
So that's a really good point there. It's so important to kind of like, and they say like, even when I'm not religious, but I do like sort of talk to my higher power. They say in order to pray as well, it's not about what I want this, I want that. If you're grateful for what you do have, you tend to get more of it.
Definitely. And it's speaking things into existence as well. So because of my childhood and bringing up, I was always very nervous around money. I always wanted money because I always thought I didn't have any. And so like I've been saving since I was like 15 years old on like little part-time jobs and things like that. And so it got to the point where, as I've told you, my car is on its last legs.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, I've got no money. Because in my head, the only money I have is in my current account, and I don't keep anything in there other than bare necessities for the month. And it wasn't until my mum turned around, she went, Grace, like, you do have enough money. Go get yourself a car so you're not stressed. And just be happy and grateful.
That's such a good point, because
that.
we're taught at school, we're not even taught to save, but I think also investing is important. I prefer to invest rather than save, but there's no point in, pushing yourself and working really hard if you can't enjoy the journey as well.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you look after your money and you're frugal, but I think if you buy something that's going to benefit you and then you get buyer's guilt and buyer's remorse, it kind of like defeats the object a little bit, doesn't it? So don't go crazy, I'd say, but treat yourself, it's fine,
Definitely. What was the best thing you've ever bought?
Probably the family home, because I got it at such an amazing price. It was on for a certain price and I lowballed it. They accepted it. This is
brilliant.
This is quite bad. But also 2 weeks before it was going through, I phoned up the estate agent and said, actually, I know you've literally gave me an amazing deal. Like I'm talking like £400,000 or £500,000 off the asking price. And I said, well, I'm still not happy. And I went, and I said, the only way I'm going to do it is if you do it at this price now. And he was like, mate, what the, and he went ballistic at me, but they agreed it. So I got that house for an amazing price. I've done some stupid things where when I was reckless with money, I had this 35 grand Audemars Piguet watch in chrome. And a week later, I thought, I really want it in rose gold as well. I spent another, it was like, I wouldn't even dream of doing that now. What else? I mean, I think things like, I used to have Range Rovers, now I've got like a more of a cost-effective car. I think the best investment I've had really is probably investing in myself, in terms of the amount of coaches I've had, the amount of personal development I've done. I've got different coaches now. So my health, my nutrition and my personal development, investing in myself has been far better than any of the material things that I could list. And I'll swap all those material things. The amount of money I've wasted on material things, if I invested half of that back into myself, I'd be in an even greater place than I am now. But we can't turn the clock back.
Unfortunately not. But at least you've done it now, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so what made you start your next business after the previous one? Because it must have taken a lot of guts to start another one.
I thought I was this kind of person that everyone was laughing at and a failure and all this kind of stuff. But I was invited onto LinkedIn about 4 years ago now to do a webinar of my choice. I chose vulnerability and leadership. I did this talk about how important it is to be vulnerable, and it went down really well. And it kind of like, it was born out the fact that I thought I had a really powerful story, as in like rags to riches to losing it. Why don't I harness that story, get it out there, and not many people can be a top biller in a £1.5 billion business. Not many people can bootstrap a £25 million business. Hang on a second, mate. You've got some skills here. You're wasting your energy and your time sitting in your bed moping around. Start doing some advisory work. And I thought it would be a good story and a good way to kind of impart my skills on other people. So I had a purpose, whereas before I was just about building a recruitment business. This was about Anon. If I can harness my loss, my trauma and teach people that you can recover from anything, it kind of gave me that purpose. So there was a purpose behind it, and I needed the money. And I also thought that it was the next level of evolution for me, from building my own business to then now advising other people. So now I'm financially secure now, I've got stuff going on and I'm happy. It's taken a while, there's a long way to go and I've got a lot to learn, but I feel there's so much more purpose with what I'm doing now. And I think that when you put purpose before profit, you get profit anyway. Mm-hmm. Whereas these people that just go for the money's important, but they haven't got any substance behind them. I think That's when you're in a, but it's difficult in this day and age. Everything's expensive.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a money mindset.
Spent £7 on a hot chocolate the other day.
That is, I mean, that says it all. That's a lot for one drink that lasts about 30. I mean, where do they make these prices from?
From their heads.
It's crazy, right? Was it nice hot chocolate though?
It was so underwhelming.
Was it? Did you have marshmallows?
No, and no cream.
You expect it for that price, no?
It was so small. It was like this big.
God.
It was a massive waste of money, but I'd already ordered it, and then the bill came, and I was like, I'm just going to have to pay it now, which is rubbish.
Yeah, won't go there again.
No, not at all. If I do go, I'll be ordering something else.
Yeah, I know. The prices of things are just, but then it's one of those things where, I think that it's important to moan about these things, but I think that then you've got to laugh it off and move on.
Yeah.
Because I think if you get into that zone where there's people out there that just like that, all they do is moan about things.
But it's about, like we touched on earlier, speaking to yourself in a better way.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you look at something and go, oh my God, that's so expensive, I can't afford that. It's switching your mindset going, okay, how can I afford that? What changes do I need to make?
Yeah. Absolutely. I also think that if you really want something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. So there's always a way to do things. If you're focused and dedicated, it's like people, like a lot of my CEOs say, I'm struggling with time management, and they spend a lot of their time doing stuff that is just so time consuming as well. So I think that deep down, there's always enough time. There's always a way. If it's all about dedication and commitment as well, isn't it? And I think it's about setting realistic goals. I think that's really important. I've set some really big goals. I climbed Kilimanjaro in January. I did my first public speaking gig 3 months ago, and I just completed the marathon. But all those goals were great, but they pushed me in other directions. They made me more disciplined in other aspects of my life. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to say there is I think it's good to have these really difficult goals because, for instance, the public speaking one, I was really nervous about it, but I kind of I was dressing better. I was getting my hair cut differently. I was going to sleep earlier just because of that. And that led to better decisions. With the New York Marathon, I was doing an extra session in the gym. I was eating better, and that led to better decisions. So all these things are kind of self-perpetuating, right?
Which is absolutely brilliant. And so someone that is just a bit confuzzled in their business and not thinking straight, what steps would you give them to become a better version of themselves?
I think firstly, ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. So why are you even doing what you're doing? It goes back to being the CEO of your life. So I think business is really important, but as I've said quite a few times, I think you have to look at your whole life in terms of the content you absorb in, the health and fitness stuff, the personal development. I think that I would hire people or speak to people that are better than you. Have a clear plan. Also, I think it's important, as I said earlier, to stay within your niche and your capability, but try to upskill as well. You can learn pretty much anything these days off YouTube or whatever, can't you? So I think it's about taking action, speaking to as many like-minded people as possible. I'm a member of different sort of WhatsApp groups of people that have got more experience than me, and I'm learning and growing and kind of get yourself out there. Everything's at your fingertips if you want to do it, but you've got to have clarity, you've got to have purpose, you've got to have a reason why you're doing it. And if it's just money, I don't think that's deep enough.
Because I don't think it gets you out of bed on those really difficult days where you need a deeper purpose other than money. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And with purpose, right, that can move and shake and evolve. But I think that it motivates me that if you ask me what my purpose is, it's to be the best version of myself I can be. I know I've got some great skills and great experience. It's about the impact I'm having on other people, how I'm making them feel and how I feel about myself as well. If I'm putting a lot of time and effort into myself, a lot of time and effort into using my skills and experience on other people, that's going to generate money as well. So it kind of that knowledge, that power, that personal development that's the vehicle to make money, as opposed to I just want to make money. But that's not enough. You need, in this day and age, I think you kind of need a personal brand, right?
Yeah.
And if you haven't got a personal brand, you're not going to win. But if you've got a personal brand that hasn't got anything to offer, then you're not going to get there anyway. So kind of, I mean, people shy away from personal brand, don't they? But I think that kind of says what it needs to say on the tin. Be yourself. If you want me to give you advice about personal brand, it's honestly, the more you are of yourself, I think it kind of sounds quite basic, but then you attract the people that you want to attract.
Because you're speaking to them.
Yeah. Literally, you're not trying to be something that you're not. You're not trying to manage. People can just smell it a mile off, can't they? They can see it.
100%. And so the last question is, what is a piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
I'd say that I love you, Chris. What I mean by that is I was never told that. I was never nurtured or taught it. And I think that I'd say to myself, mate, you're a fucking superstar. I love you to bits. get your head down. Don't listen to the noise. Be yourself and love yourself. I look at myself in the mirror sometimes and I'm really proud. I never really had that before. So just how proud I am of myself, I think.
That's lovely. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.